welcome you to the Mustang Performing Arts Center. My name is Samantha Waldrop. I'm the director of this beautiful facility that was made possible by the passing of the 2017 bond election. The bond approved, ironically, February 14, 2017, by the voters of our district has been a catalyst for positive change in our community. Take a look at the impact of that 2017 student investment for our students and for our community.
The Mustang Performing Arts Center has transformed MPS fine arts education. We now have access to a world-class facility, fostering our creativity and passion for the arts. We are grateful to the voters of the 2017 bond who believed in the vision and made this dream into a reality. Thank you for investing in our future.
Thank you again to the 2017 voters who made this dream a reality. You just saw just a few of the wonderful programs and opportunities we are now able to offer our students and our community because of the 2017 bond. And now, what we're here for this evening, we're here to focus on February 14th, 2023 for the Momentum 23 bond and election. I'd like to begin by introducing the panel who will be answering your questions this evening. We have, and if you'll just wave so they can spot you, NPS Superintendent, Mr. Charles Bradley, Assistant Superintendent, Jason Pittenger, Assistant Superintendent, Stacy Edwards, Assistant Superintendent, Ryan McKinney, and he will be here shortly, Mustang City Manager, Mr. Tim Rooney, Mr. Joe Voigt from our Long Range Planning Committee, MPS Board President, Mr. Todd Lovelace, Mrs. Donna Solomon, who teaches at Valley Elementary, Mrs. Caitlin Walker, who teaches at Mustang High School, and Jill Mitchell, Director of Mustang Public Schools Foundation Community. And in just a moment, we will hear from Mr. Bradley, who will present about the Momentum 23 bond. As you enter, you are given note cards. You can write any questions you would like answered this evening on those cards. And our Director of Communications down here, Mr. Kirk Wilson, will be collecting them and organizing them by themes that our panel will discuss for you this evening. We may not have the opportunity to ask every single question as they are written or answer every single question as they are written this evening, but our hope is to touch on the areas that are brought up and discuss the topics that are most popular from your questions. And now I will turn this over to Mr. Charles Bradley.
The toughest decision I have is, do I stay put or roam? I'm a roamer by nature, so we'll see which one works out. I was texting with Mr. Rooney. He's in El Reno at a county city planning meeting, and he said, I can be there in 15 minutes, but I'll have to travel 125 miles an hour. And I said, don't do that. Just drive the speed limit, and when you get here, you get here. But definitely want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. and just wanting to know more about what's this bond issue about, what is it going to provide, how did it get developed, all of those questions. And I know that everybody's busy. Oh. I even checked that. It's the little things. So, everything's on the website, but I know there's nothing like being able to see it for yourself, presented, having the opportunity to write a question, let us be able to answer it, and just engage in that manner. So what I wanted to do is, what I am going to do is just go through a presentation. We've given, I think roughly 75 presentations since January 2nd. And so what we try to do is cater the presentation to the audience. And so this is going to be, since I really don't know exactly where everybody's from within the audience, it's going to kind of be a hodgepodge, so make sure that I get all the different components of the presentation. So hopefully you find that informative. And again, I'll say this many times, all of this, even this presentation, is on our website. Go to our main page, click Momentum, and it'll take you right to the bonds. So there's an FAQ that's there every time we have a question, and it's going to happen again after tonight. If there's a question that we get that we just didn't know or it's the first time, you're going to see that as an FAQ as well. So that we want to make sure if you have a question, then there's got to be at least 20 other people with the same question. So, did we put the batteries in upside down?
I put them in the correct way. It's lit up. I mean, come on.
Okay. So what is this bond issue about? You saw the words momentum. Momentum, what we try to do is just convey what is this about. And we're using the word momentum, and I'll say this several times. We say student investment plan. That is a fancy way of saying bond issue, yes. And we're not opposed to bond issue, but the sentiment we're trying to portray to the community is a single bond issue doesn't take care of all of the needs. So when we look at it in the frame of a student investment plan, this bond issue in 2023 will be able to address the needs that are right in front of us. With that knowledge, knowing that and it's an estimate in 2027, that we will probably have need for more because of our growth. And so we're going to be responding to that like we have since 2012. Long-range planning committee, try to get as much information, what are the priorities, prioritize, and then present to the board how we got where we are. But this is what's driving us, the growth. Now this is the projection from this year moving forward 10 plus years. So when you see this, you're like, oh, whoa, that's a lot. And it is, but it's a projection. So let me show you kind of how to read this, is that you gotta have context. The context is, when this was developed a year and a half ago from we partnered with a demographic study group, what was the name of them? Zonda. Yeah, Zonda, that's a name that just stays in your mind forever. But they did a fantastic job. A year ago, when they projected what our enrollment would be this October, it was 99.3% accurate. So they're really good at what they do. And so then from those projections, they projected an estimate. And please note, for up to 10 years, please know that for every year you project outwards, the reliability goes down because of unseen factors. I'll tell you how this has changed already, is when we look at the housing market. And that's really what's driving our growth, is the housing market. Already, we know that interest rates have gone up. And I don't know if there's any realtors in the audience, but the rate at which homes are selling in the past year has gone down. So when we were a year ago, homes were on the market for at or above asking price on the market for 8 days was the typical average. So just about a month ago, when I talked with realtors, they said that right now, it's really looking at asking prices to the high end and maybe a little bit below that. Of course, every scenario is different. But then on the market for 44 days. So we've seen this transition as rates go up for mortgages. There has been a decrease in the rate at which homes are sold. They're still selling. We still have kids moving into the district. It's just that the rate is slowing down, so that is not reflected in these numbers. Every year we'll go through that process of readjusting them to make sure we have the most accurate data. So I just wanted to provide a little context there, that it's like the stock market. It doesn't go up forever, and it doesn't go down forever. There's bumps in the road. So that's a good context for that. But in the long story short, we're growing. And I think everybody could agree with that. Okay. So as we grow, we want to see the impact that this growth is having on our buildings. So if you look at this in kind of the frame of mind I'd like you to look at it is the numbers that really matter are on the percent occupancy on the right-hand side. Look at this as like a stoplight, red, yellow, green, okay? Anything 0 to 75% occupancy, oh, and I do have to say this is not fire marshal, like a fire marshal's gonna come in and shut us down. This is what we would say is an internal metric that tells us how close are we to getting full. So if we're 0 or 75 lower, that's green, like a stoplight. It's green, things are fine, you just keep an eye on stuff. If you go from 75 to 90, that's yellow. Your growth is creeping up there, you better have a plan in place. If you're above 90, that's the red. You need to have a plan in place. You need to have something figured out. So if you look at those, you see that our elementaries, by and large, are well above that 90%. So this is the metric we look at to help tell us where are we. And then you can see on the left, it talks about the year they're built, square footage, and that's how we come up with that number. Like I said, it's an internal metric. It doesn't mean that we don't have any more room for kids. It tells us, the metric tells us, hey, you're getting really close to being full. So now we have a small window to try to correct that. And then over here you have our intermediates and our middle schools, as well as our high school. You see the numbers are probably more in the yellow here because we addressed intermediate and middle schools in the 2017 bond issue. So that's why those numbers are lower. Because of the bond issue, very grateful to our voters, to our patrons for allowing that to happen, and it had an immediate impact on the class sizes at those levels. And then when you go to the high school, I do want to talk about that just for a second. 80.6. Oh, what do you talk about 80.6? If you have a kid at high school, which I do, there's no room. So they will definitely dispute that. So what I did was, when you look at the high school, we're sitting in a building that is part of the high school. This is not an instructional space. But I didn't want to create numbers or be accused of manipulating numbers, so I just took the entire square footage of the entire footprint of the high school. And that comes out to 80.6, but you got your big boxes, your Performing Arts Center, your Event Center, your old gym, the old auditorium, they're not used throughout the day. So when you remove those big boxes and only focus on the instructional areas that have class every single hour, that number goes from 80.6 to 100.3. Okay? Again, why did I not show that? It's because I want to give you the exact calculations that I gave for every building, but I'm letting you know when you remove big boxes like this, the number shoots up to over 100%. Okay? So, what's the plan? The plan is we're going to have to address that growth at these two areas, the high school and the elementary. So at the elementary level, we're proposing elementary number 9, and then a high school area expansion to address some of those high needs that's going on at the high school. Okay. And I'll talk more about that. I'm just giving you an overview. We'll dig in a little bit more on each one of those projects. But I also want to talk about how we're getting there. Since 2009, I believe, the plan has been to try to address the growth, has been to have a bond issue, and it's part of the lease purchase revenue model. A lot of schools do it. It's a perfectly good model, and we have benefited from that. But there seems to be this, as we continue to grow, and you bond for everything that you need, school finances are not simple. So I'm going to equate it to a simple illustration that I think you'll get, but just trust me, it is way more complex than this. When we've done these bond issues, you've essentially maxed out the credit card and to address these needs. And so you have to wait over time to pay down your credit card until you have enough money to where you can go and make other purchases. Again, very simple analogy, but way more complex. So we wanted to look at something, talking about a phased plan. We needed to look at something to where we weren't just trying to build or having to build new. Because new buildings are great, they address growth, we need them desperately, but then what happens to our older buildings? They just get older. Again, there's nothing wrong with what we've been doing, it's just that part of our district is not able to get into that loop. So how can we create a plan that's going to be able to incorporate that while we're growing? And that's what this phase plan is that we will look at a part of the investment plan is we projecting that in 23 and 27, we'll have another bond issue, because projecting it, not telling you we will, because we're still growing. And what that's going to do is we'll be able to address immediate needs and not max out the credit card, and we'll be able to pay off our debt faster. So when we pay off our debt faster, now you increase the amount of money that's available down the road. And this is going to allow conversations for how can we touch up Lake Homa, Elementary, Valley, and some of our older buildings. So this is the phase plan is trying to address immediate needs, and we have to do something, but also trying to get in the rotation our older buildings that desperately need to be touched. Okay? So part of that, and again, we'll go into detail as we move in here. So that's, I wanted to make sure we understood what that phase plan and the investment plan is about. So over on the other side, you see the long-range plan, and it does talk about going up in millage. We'll go into depth on that. Let's see. I think I hit all of those. I think we're good. Okay, so an overview of what we're asking for. There's really two big capital projects, elementary number 9 and the high school expansion. But the one I want to talk about and really highlight really doesn't have its own slide, and we can definitely come up with that, but I just want to highlight it to this group. It's the middle part, talking about safety and security, huge component of what we're asking for. We're asking for, on the safety and security side, badge, card readers to control access, camera upgrades, and why camera upgrades are important is, you know, a little bit of history about me. I came to Mustang in 1998, was a high school science teacher for 7 to 8 years, then became an administrator. But then, as I was dealing with cameras, you know, cameras were an autopsy. You know, you had to go to the cameras and see what happened, and you're hours past the event. Technology has advanced so much that cameras now can alert you to certain things, but only if your cameras are up to date. Of the 650 lenses we have in the district, 60% are analog. In order to take advantage of the software that can go into your camera system, for example, there's a company we're looking at that can do weapon recognition from cameras. So, but in order for that to work, you have to upgrade your camera system from analog to digital. And that's a pretty expensive overhaul. Plus, we want to add more cameras with this technology. So it detects it, and immediately our SROs, our police department, administration get an alert of something going on within seconds. And the one thing that we need in any situation like that is time. And that's something that where the software gives us that time to react to it. So I definitely wanted to talk about that. And fencing is always important for security, creating boundaries, but I wanted to highlight that piece of the bond issue. Okay. So let's talk about high school expansion. Quickly, you'll see on the right-hand side just some of the things that we'll do for the high school, since the location is where the current, and I get confused because we have the PE gym, then we have the old gym, then we have the event center. This is what we call the old gym. It's the brick with the Mustang Morsi on the side. That's where that building currently sits, and this is where we are projecting for this building to go. The reason for the location is because we wanted someplace close in proximity for kids to take it, so they're still going to have to go to electives, they're still going to have to go to FFA, they're still going to have to go to band. This is not a self-sufficient building. This is an expansion of the high school. So this becomes the best location for it. And anytime you tear a gym down, you have to make sure you're keeping a gym space for our PE programs, for after-school practice. It's not a competitive gym. It is a practice, would be a practice facility. But main use would be for all of our PE sections that is currently being used at the old PE or old gym building. The other thing is the I want to talk just a little bit about the cafeteria kitchen. How many in here have high school kids? Okay, so you've heard about first brunch, second brunch, lunch, late lunch. Yes, I have had 2 boys and I heard about it all the time. So this gives us the opportunity to create a second kitchen with a cafeteria, so it's self-sufficient in that area. It's a space that's going to hold up to 1,500 people. Based on what we're seeing now is our max projections, this would be give us an 8-year window. And like I said earlier, we already have a slowdown in growth, so every time there's a slowdown, that extends that window that we're able to take advantage of just having 2. Because right now they have 4 lunch periods. One of those is a split lunch. You go to class, stop, go to lunch, then come back to class. That's not the best environment for that. So going to 2 lunch periods for the entire school gives that opportunity where we're not breaking up those classrooms for lunch. So this would be a tremendous help for the high school as far as providing 2 areas for lunches to have two periods only, not 4. Last year I believe they had 5. Programming needs, what does that mean? We have some amazing technology-based classes that we offer that kids take advantage of. But we converted an old classroom that had like 4 outlets. So we did the best we could to try to get those. So these classrooms, and some of them will be technology-based, they're being built with those specific classrooms in mind. Like for example, aviation, one of our most successful programs has 95, 96 kids in it. They're using a biology lab. Well, we need that biology lab because of our growth, so we have to move aviation somewhere. And so this would have a dedicated area for aviation. We have several simulators. We have one in the hallway because it can't fit through the door, and there's no way to get it in there. So this would create a space for popular programs that kids can still take advantage of, but it's designed for them. Also, I do want to highlight a little bit on the functional skills classroom. Functional skills, if you're not familiar with that, these are students with severe needs, special ed students with severe needs. And like I was talking about the technology, we had to convert these rooms to meet their needs. This would be able to be built specifically for their needs, for our most severe students that have very specific needs. So that is something we're really excited to be able to do, provide that space for them. Okay. And you're going to see several of these. At the high school, with the expansion, you're going to see other components of the bond touch these, but you're also going to see these throughout the district. So this doesn't mean only the high school is going to get technology upgrades. We're just showing what else besides the expansion the high school will receive from this. So will the rest of the schools in the district. So with the growth, there's no wants on here. These are all needs. And so I do want to, I'm not going to shy away from topics because of the communications we've received, as I want to make sure I'm giving the facts. If you look at that list and you're going, turf, that sounds like a want to me, that doesn't sound like a need. Well, the way we do it with turf, or the way turf works, is it degrades over time, and it has a rating. You have to have it rated third party. Once it exceeds that rating, it's shut down. You can't, nobody can be on there. So we are year 8, 9 into a 10-year, and it's going to age out in the next year. So, and we build things so that they have multiple uses. There's no such thing as proprietary. Only this group can be on here. So we have multiple groups. We have football, we have band, we have soccer, taking advantage of our turf field over by the football stadium. And so all of that has a wear and tear on it. We added the practice field, so that's helping distribute that wear and tear, so maybe we can get a little more life out of the football field. But the bottom line is that's going to age out, it's going to rate out, and we're going to have to shut down. So we need to replace that. We knew it going in. When you take on turf, we knew that it had a 10-year cycle. So that would be the reasoning for that. Softball hitting facility, that has been on the list for a long time. It's going to address several things that has needed to happen over there. And the other thing, and I may be stealing some of your questions, but I get a lot all the time, why does athletics get so much money? Of $180.9 million of what we're proposing, athletics will receive 1.6%. It's the turf and the softball field. That's it. And fine arts probably gets a little bit less than that. So this is completely dedicated to the things we have to replace that directly impact students, as well as making ground on the growth as best we can. Okay, number 9, elementary number 9, I can't get too fancy, it's an elementary. We've got pre-K through 4th. But we desperately need this in a certain location. Anybody from Riverwood? Okay, Riverwood is the second largest building in the district, second only to the high school with the number of students. They have over 950 students in an elementary. We used some of our ESSER money, the federal dollars, actually most of it, to build a 6th classroom expansion at Riverwood. That won't be done until next year. So we're trying, with funds that we have available, we're trying to make sure we're doing the best we can to accommodate growth. But that's a drop in the bucket. We need another elementary to help reduce the class sizes and spread out the population amongst our elementaries. So this has to be located somewhere in the heart of the district. Anybody from Mustang Elementary? Or their kids went there? Well, they're the only elementary that went from the building outside into the cafeteria. And so it's not, they're gonna get wet. That has nothing to do with it. They're tough kids, they can handle the weather. But it's a safety issue. There's a parking lot on the east, there's a parking lot on the west. It's an access issue. So all of our kids are leaving the building, going into the cafeteria, leaving the cafeteria, going into the building. We think they need to be in a safe environment when they do that. And so this will be something that we handle with this bond issue. Always we have projects that try to impact as many spaces as possible. We're not doing replacement and a total redo of playgrounds. We're just being able to address those safety issues at some playgrounds. So, please don't say that, hey, he promised playground equipment for everybody. No, it's just a refresh to make sure we're keeping up with safety concerns and going from there. HVAC, Mustang Middle School and North Middle School, these gyms, and again, it has nothing to do with, our basketball players need, and wrestlers need air conditioning. These are their public spaces where they're meeting the public, Veterans Day assemblies, parents coming in for various things. And in the summer months or before spring or before fall gets here, these places are hot. And if you've ever been to North or Middle School for one of the meetings, it's hot. You can't even focus on what you're saying. So then people start opening doors to allow air coming in. Well, you've just eliminated every security feature by propping a door open to get air. So this allows us to come in there and put HVAC in both gyms for their gathering areas. And I'm not going to read every single one of them to you, but the things I've talked about, you can see here, every single site will see some of these. Now, newer elementaries are not going to see as much as probably an older elementary. We're trying to make sure we're hitting the exact need where they are. Technology is huge. Transportation, I do want to touch on that one. We have an aging fleet, so we need to make sure we're rotating our buses for transports. I forgot how many hundreds of thousands of miles we travel in 1 month picking up kids. We're a 72 square mile district, so taking to school and from school, it's wear and tear on our buses. The other thing is on here will be some activity buses. I think you all remember, or may remember, when our band got shut down and wasn't going to go to Indianapolis. Well, I had to swallow the pride of a Mustang superintendent, call the Yukon superintendent and say, hey, can we use your buses? But you know what? Our kids were happy to do it. They were going to Indianapolis. What this is going to do is give us reliable transportation for all kids involved in activities, not just athletics, but fine arts. Why can't we just take a yellow bus? Well, we have so much equipment when we go on our activities, you have to have the storage down below. So you have to have dedicated buses, or you're taking 2 buses for kids and another bus for equipment, when you can really just handle it with 1 bus with proper storage. So this bond issue will address, I think it's 3 to 4 activity buses that we're going to get out of this. And they'll look just like the yellow buses, but just with the storage. Okay, all sounds great. How are we paying for this? So this is the part I go into the weeds on. And I've been told that I'm going to get stuff thrown at me if I go too far into the weeds, because you're really here to listen to the panelists and we're here to listen to your questions. So up here, this is taken from an actual property tax bill. Someone that lives in Oklahoma city limits, Mustang School District. So if you live in Mustang proper, it might look different than this, okay? So Oklahoma City resident, Mustang School District. So the top part of it, how much am I paying to taxes for the school? That's usually the question. So you look at the ones marked T, that's town, V, vocational, because everybody that has a career tech in them, by law, there's a certain millage that goes to that. Then you get to the county portion, and then the S, S069, Mustang schools are independent district 69. So you see there, the general fund, 36.3, that's state law. We can't adjust that. There's nothing that can be done. That's set by law. That's the millage dedicated to the general fund set by the state. Building fund, again, set by the state. We have no control over that. That is 5.19, set by statute. Sinking fund, okay, now that's the only one that is directly related and fluctuates. And that is just simply the fund for paying back bonds. So right now that sits at 25.79. So what's the tax impact of bonds that we passed to the patrons? 25.79. And there will be a slide to show where does that rank, where does that put Mustang in the scheme of things. So what does that mean? Let's go to the next slide. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Okay, so here you've heard me say, kind of in passing, that our target is 28 mils, or you've seen a 28 to 30. So our target for 12 years has been 28. I have no idea, and no one knows what the actual will be in a year. So when we sit down with our bond advisor and we come up with a bond plan, we have to have an estimate. What's your target? What are you shooting for? 28 has always been our target for 12 years. Only one of those years has it actually been 28. So 11 of the 12 years, it's been less than 28, okay? So if you look up here, these are comparable to, 6A, some 5A, but there's some schools that are more, what I would say, similar to us. So you see last year, because this year's unofficial because the year hadn't ended. So up there, you see where I would call comparable to us, Piedmont, Choctaw, Bixby, Jinx, Yukon, Deer Creek, Union, Owasso is very similar to us. So those would be what I would say comparable. So where we currently sit is in the lower portion, whether it's last year or this year, of the tax impact to a community for bond issues. So what would happen if we moved it to 30? Well, you see there's an arrow up there, and I'm colorblind. So it might be red, might be black, might be yellow, I don't know. All I know is there's an arrow there. So that's where we would be if our current millage was 30. We would be underneath Yukon for last year, and then we'd be in between Bartlesville and Owasso for this year, as far as the tax impact due to bond issues for a school. Okay. Each one of these stories is different for each community, but looking at what is the investment per student within a community, you can see here, and it's a function of how many kids does the district have and how much bond indebtedness are they in. So for us, where we are, and it's low, we're at the bottom of the pack. We spend on average $1,290 per student when it comes just to bond funds. Every year we pay off our debt, it's just like clockwork. And then when you add a bond issue, you go up. So if we move to, this bond were to pass, where would we move to? We would be between Muskogee and Moore, is where we would sit on our investment per student. So that slide is not an indictment. I'm not calling out anybody. It's just where things are. The voters and the parents of Mustang have been super gracious to us for passing bond issues. So I don't want anybody to think I'm calling anybody out. So what is it going to cost? So on average, and this is in October, the median home value was at $225,000. Is what that price was. Probably slightly lower when we look at it now. But that would be $4.34 per month at that median home value would be the impact if the target of 30 a year from now actually becomes 30. And like I said, 11 of the last 12 years, the target has been higher than the actual. but there's the potential. And I want everybody knowing up front that there is that potential. I don't want anything snuck by or he didn't talk about this. If there's a potential, I want our voters to know full well this is the impact of that. The other part about going from 28 to 30, we did set this bond up at our target 28. Because of inflation, because of cost increases, we weren't able to do everything. We would have to pick between a smaller high school expansion, and that's it, with the other stuff, or an elementary and the other stuff. So 28, this is the first time that our target of 28, we lost significant ground on growth. Moving to 30, we're probably going to be able to keep up with where we've been, not really gaining ground on it. Overview, again, just so you can have a look at where everything is. The recurring funds, if you see that, what does that mean? In 2012, that bond issue set aside $2 million per year for things like roofing, fencing, textbooks, technology, athletics, band, what am I missing? Paving repairs, HVAC. So that was dedicated money. By law, that money had to go spent for those components. That money runs out in this summer from 2012. So this bond issue is going to carry on that impact of recurring funds. Why is that important? We have older buildings, we have newer buildings that require maintenance. We have to take care of it. And so that does have a cost. If we kept it at 28 mils, that $2 million that we were getting would go to $1 million. And so every department would see a 50% reduction in their bond funds. So if we had to pull over from the general fund, which is the money we get from the state, and by the way, it's illegal for me to use general fund money to build a building. I can't do that, it's against the law. So I'm gonna have to, if we stay at 28 or if the bond issue doesn't pass, I have to pull money from general fund to account for the upkeep and maintenance that I know is gonna happen. General fund, 90% of that goes to teacher salaries, support salaries, salaries in the district, and when we want to go and hire new staff to the district. So if I'm taking millions of dollars out to make sure we can maintain our facilities, then that reduces the impact that we have of going and hiring new teachers for our growth. So this is why this is such a big deal for recurring dollars, because there's no competition between general fund and bond funds. Legally, I have to spend that money from the bonds on those projects, and I'm glad to do that. So it keeps the funds separate, and we're able to keep a certain level of maintenance. So February 14th, right before you go to take your loved one out for steak and ice cream or whatever you crazy kids do these days, we appreciate you considering going out and voting. So at this time, has anybody turned in questions or?
Not yet, but I've got a couple.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Kirk. He is going to be our moderator now.
All right, if you do have questions, you have note cards that are available out front. And if you'll hold those up, we've got some folks that are going to bring them around. But while we get some of those, we'll start with a question that came in. That is, how did these items make it into the bond? What was the process for determining what the funds would be spent on?
So I'll take that question. My name is Jason Pitcher. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Operations. Every bond issue, much like this one, begins with years of planning prior to the vote. Historically, Mustang has had a long-range planning committee comprised of roughly 30 individuals, community leaders, administrators, teachers, parents, stakeholders. They get together and actually solicit ideas for what the needs of the district are. We begin by throwing everything on a sheet of paper, from restrooms to swimming pools to second high schools, you name it, it goes on the list. We then go through a process of school finance education. We talk about school finance a little bit. We go through the bonding process and get an education on what the bonding process looks like. We then move to big, large community type of issues, such as a second high school, and we vet those ideas through this long-range planning committee. Through that process, we meet monthly. We kind of distill our needs down to a proposal that we present to our Board of Education. And that proposal is data-driven. Superintendent Bradley spoke about Zonda education earlier, and we really just relied on the growth data that Zonda provided to us. It's clearly evident. If you drive down 152 or up and down Mustang Road, you see dirt on the left and the right. We're growing leaps and bounds. So it's not a surprise that the Long Range Planning Committee brought to our Board of Education elementary number 9 and the high school expansion. Again, like Superintendent Bradley said, 2017, we were able to build an elementary and a middle school, and an intermediate prior to that was Meadowbrook in 17? Or was it in 12? 17. So we addressed those areas. That's why they're green with their capacity right now. So then we provide those needs prioritized to our board, and the board votes on a resolution as to how much it's going to cost to meet those needs. And again, this is not a situation where we're out there grabbing things that we really, really want. If you looked at the first slide, the graph that just goes up, we're kind of behind the curve on addressing growth. So that's a priority need, and it should be crystal clear to anyone who lives within our school district that we've got kids that need classrooms to learn in, and we have teachers that we need to hire, but we don't have space to put them in. So that's the driving force that our Long Range Planning Committee got together and kind of brought together for our board.
Would any other panelists like to speak to that question?
Yes, I'm Todd Lovelace, I'm one of the board members. So that information that Jason explained to you comes to us as a board, and we also get a chance to look at it and see really what's best for our community, what's best for our staff, and what's best for our students. And like Superintendent Bradley said, that these are not wants that are up here. These are things that we definitely need to allow our teachers to have safe classrooms, don't have too many students in there. Also, just allow you guys to know that your kids are safe at school. A lot of these things are, I know, kind of looked at differently than some of the other things like athletics and things like that. But again, these are things that we desperately need for our students and for our staff to make us, and continue to make us, one of the best school districts in the state.
All right, thank you very much. Next question we have, is there anything that the city of Mustang can do to help with the growth in the area?
I'll be happy to take that question. I apologize for being late. The last time I was on the high school stage, I was performing as Colonel Henry Blake in MASH. So it's been a while. But anyway, yes, we work closely with the school district in terms of when they identify different projects that will be built and potential road improvements. One of them is going on, or started I think last week right out here, to widen that street. So we work with them and try to assist in any way that we can, understanding that a lot of the schools are located outside of Mustang city limits proper, but we do try to do whatever we can to assist.
Let me just follow up on that with Mr. Rooney and Justin Battles, the assistant manager. We meet with them periodically, and when they say, hey, we maybe have this partnership going on with the state on widening some roads, would it benefit the school, or how would it benefit the school if 89th was widened and a stoplight was put in, what's the Highway 4? Well, I personally don't let my child go over there and make a left turn whenever schools are going out, but having a stoplight, having the city come to us and say, hey, we can do this, would this benefit you? To me, that's just a great relationship there. So having Highway 4 with a stoplight and 89th 4-lane, that is going to help us with our traffic flow.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions on the theme of what happens if. So the first one, what happens if this bond doesn't pass? There have been a lot of needs that have been laid out. So what happens to those, and how do we proceed if the bond were to not pass?
I'll just answer real quick, but you can answer too. I'm just going to say one word. Well, more than one word. A lot of portables.
I'm Stacy Edwards. I'm the Assistant Superintendent over elementary and intermediate schools. So this question is something that comes up a lot. We've been doing listening tours where we've been going from school to school and just sitting with our teachers and talking to them about their needs and just wanting to hear their concerns with the state of education right now. And something that comes up a lot is what if this bond doesn't happen, it doesn't pass, because our teachers are truly concerned because their class sizes keep creeping up. Right now we have a max of 25 students in our early childhood classrooms and a maximum of 27 in our 3rd and 4th grade classrooms. And I can tell you what our teachers are telling us is when I have 27 students in my classroom, that becomes nothing more than just management. I'm just managing students the best I can, and it really impedes the ability to really make an influence and just a true academic effort toward those students to give them what they need. So that's the major concern. Another big concern that we have is our pre-K classrooms. We've been able to offer full-day pre-K on a wide scale in Mustang over the past several years, and that's been something that's been truly impactful for our early grades. And we believe in the power of reaching those students as early as we possibly can and providing them a great foundational educational experience. And if this bond issue doesn't pass, one of my concerns is that we would have to close those pre-K classrooms down in order to use that classroom space for K through 4. Donna is a 1st grade teacher at Valley. She probably has some things to add to that as well.
So I know you all have a 5-year-old in your life at some point. I know at one elementary right now, you take that bundle of energy that your 5-year-old is and multiply that by 25, 26 kids. That's a lot of energy in one little place. The other thing, the pre-K thing, oh my gosh, we have been empowered with how much pre-K has helped our lower elementary kids. And just the scaffolding that goes on and all the things we can do before they get to kindergarten, before they get to 1st, and then on to state to 3rd and 4th grade where there's state testing. I think we would really see a change in what we're able to produce in an elementary level if we had to send our kids back to pre-K in the churches and the daycares. And there's nothing wrong with those programs, they're fantastic. I think that we just have a more rigorous program than those people are able to provide. So losing pre-K would be a big deal, and our class sizes are it's just not okay to have 26 kindergartners. It's just not okay. That's scary. I want you to really, really think about that one.
I'm going to jump into one of the things that I love about our district is the opportunities for our students outside of the core classrooms. And I have had 3 kids in the district. I have 2 now and 1 that's graduated. And I don't know of any other high school, really primarily a high school, that has aviation and has STEM and has robotics and has band and has athletics. I mean, kids, they'll find somewhere, they'll find their niche because there's so many things to choose from. And I know that a concern as a parent is, if there's no room for those programs and those special classes, because we need to move core classes there because of the growth, where's my kid gonna fit in? Especially at the high school level. I know that people are always concerned about the size of the high school, but those kids find their spot and they find their program and they find their community and they feel safe there and they're with people that have common interests. And if that goes away, then I worry about that. I worry about those kids.
My name is Ryan McKay, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Ed, and just want to add a couple things to that. Like Stacy was talking about, we are continually monitoring class sizes all the time, and so there's a lot of data that goes behind some of these decisions and recommendations to the Long Range Planning Committee and where we're moving forward. Like Mr. Bradley said, at the intermediate and middle school, with the Meadowbrook and Central Middle School, we were to be able to address those class sizes. At the high school, we're at that need right now. So I want to be real clear on this. We have a lot of different class sizes, and the master schedule is a nightmare to build at the high school because you've got so many classes going on all the time. You've got kids that need special classes, so whether it's AP Calc or it's football or it's special foreign language classes or whatever it is, there's a lot of classes, and so to build that schedule, I know Caitlin may speak here in a second, and Caitlin would love to have the same number of kids in every single class. And it simply doesn't happen. So a class average for us right now, this does not include direct instruction, special ed classes, but this does include co-taught classes, but it includes AP classes, all the classes. This does not count elective classes. So math, science, social studies, ELA, your subject, sorry. Those 4 subjects, we're setting over 26 kids in a class. Now, Just to be really clear, does that mean every class is 26? No, that's the average, because we've got a lot of classes over 30. So, and higher than that. And so that's the concern at the high school, is if this doesn't pass, what do we do as the numbers get bigger? We've got 3,800 kids at the high school. Mr. Bradley talked about lunches. We've got 4 to 5 lunches each year, and we're growing. So what does that become? We're starting at 10:30, we're ending after 1. Not ideal for teenagers having to eat that early. And then a lot of them, we've got programs and things after school. So it's a major concern to meet those needs. So we need those extra classroom spaces. Like Ms. Bradley talked about, the students with the severe needs. We've got, I believe, 3 classrooms right now for those students. We need more space. We're getting more students as we grow as a bigger district. We've got students in wheelchairs and with a lot of needs. We need more space. We also are charged with building transition skills for those kids to go in and function in the world after they finish high school. So we need to build that program up. But I want to go into real quick on technology. So we have 5,000 devices that will age out or end of life at the end of this year. So we've got 5,000 devices that go to students. Some of those are to teachers. Mostly the students that we've got to put in hands. We are 1-to-1, meaning each student gets a device, 5th grade through 12th grade. We've got roughly, it's not exact, but roughly 1 to 2 at the elementary level, and we want to expand on that. But we've got 5,000 devices that need to be replaced, and we know we're becoming more and more, all of us are becoming more and more dependent on technology. And when we say technology, it's not just the devices. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, wiring, access points, switches, servers. There's a lot of things behind these scenes that we've got to keep building our infrastructure as we grow bigger and we've got more kids and more devices on our network. The other thing I want to add is the recurring bond funds. One of the biggest passions for Mustang Public Schools is to have programs for our kids that they want to be a part of. We try to build a program that meets every interest of our kids. And like the video showed, there is a lot of kids in fine arts. There is a lot of kids in athletics. There's a lot of kids in robotics. So we're trying to find programs and add things, just like the aviation program. There's things that we're trying to add to tackle all those interests and get those kids ready for next steps, whatever they decide to do after high school. That recurring fund, those dollars that Mr. Bradley showed that would go to athletics and fine arts, that's their lifeline for those programs. We've got a large percentage of kids, but it also costs money to run those programs. And we have state-of-the-art schools here in Mustang. We've got state-of-the-art programs in Mustang. We've got programs that are getting national attention. We want to keep those kids and those great programs that our teachers, coaches, directors, sponsors are putting on, and keep those programs going for those kids.
Real quick, from an operational standpoint, much like you guys at home, your primary needs are food, clothing, and shelter. So if you go home and your air conditioner breaks or goes out, you have to reallocate dollars from food, clothing, and shelter to pay for that air conditioner repair. Well, for a school setting, a cooling tower is $130,000. Bank of condensers is $60,000. So if we have to address those kinds of things in a school setting, our main need is salary dollars from our general fund. So we would have to take salary dollars out of our general fund to make those repairs to that equipment. So the recurring dollars from bond issues is the lifeblood for operations, maintenance, HVAC license trades. And again, that's just the reality that we would be faced with to try to solve those problems. Those would be really, really difficult decisions. Not to say that we don't make difficult decisions as it is, but that would be our reality in the operations world.
I've taught English 1 at high school for 8 years now. My base class this year is 32, which is not the biggest I've ever had, I guess, but that's a lot of 15-year-olds. I've taught some of the people up here who are kids, and if we don't get more space, if we don't get those extra classrooms, those extra teachers that we need, and we have 6 teachers on my team, I'm going to be looking at upwards of 35 kids in my class. And it's really hard to teach Romeo and Juliet anyway, but also to then 36, 37, 15-year-olds. Like it was said earlier, it's just management at that point. It's just telling them to be quiet and sit down and we don't get a lot of instruction done. It's also not safe. It's hard to move around and to monitor what they're doing and to make sure that they're on task. And I can't always get up and down the aisles because all of their bags. And it's a lot. Ultimately with 32 kids, much less what we'll be looking at if we don't get the extra space and extra teachers that we need.
In this same vein, a similar question or follow-up would be, if this were to not pass, what would be the next steps? Is there another bond that could be brought, or what would we look at?
Okay, my mic on here. You know, the plan B is nothing. I mean, everything you've heard up here would happen. By law, we have to wait a certain amount of time before going for the same bond. You know, if the bond doesn't pass, it does not change the fact that we're out of classroom space, that we have reading specialists meeting with elementary kids in closets right now because there's no space available for that. So, you know, what happens, what's the plan after that? Well, yes, we would just repackage, wait the legal time, and then go right back out for the same thing. Nothing would change. All of these things are needs now, and they'll be needs whenever the next bond issue, if this one fails. The other thing that does is these dominoes are not just 1 and 2. The things that we have ready as part of our investment plan, moving forward as part of momentum, all of those things get pushed forward because these things don't go away. They're going to be an issue for us until we're able to solve it in that space. Like I said, I can't use general fund money to build buildings. It's against the law. So the building fund that we get from the state is roughly $1 million, $1.5 million each year. That's used for utilities. I don't know if you've noticed, but utility bills have gone up. And so that eats into that building fund. So there's only really one pot of money left, and that's what it was legally designed for, bond issues, to address capital improvement in the form of buildings. So if it doesn't pass, yes, there will be another bond issue to address the same things before the voters.
All right, so switching gears just a little bit, I have a specific question about what has the discussion been of the long-range planning committee surrounding a second high school?
We discussed a second high school. The cost it's just not cost effective. If we did something like that, financially, we would be tied for a long time. We would not be able to address needs that we need right now. And it was also thrown around, you know, it's going to divide the community. And that's not something that we're looking at. Mustang's a very tight-knit community. The school district is the community, and the community is the school district. And we just didn't think that it was in our best interest to do that right now. We have more pressing needs than a second high school. Logistically, it would be difficult. I mean, everything that we would have at this high school, we need to have at the other high school, okay? This beautiful performing arts center, what do we do with the kids at the other high school that need to come over here for things? Logistically, how do we get those over? How do we get those kids over here? The ones that can't drive yet. Do we want those kids driving across the district in the middle of the day to come over here to do those things? So there's things that are here on this campus that logistically would not be able to work at a second high school. And it just wouldn't be cost effective to have another performing arts center near another high school campus. And that's what we talked about.
Well, I'll address that too, because the questions have been, should we or shouldn't we have a second high school? And that's really the wrong question right now at this point in time. The question is, can we? And just like Joe had mentioned there, we do not have the bonding capacity to build another high school to cost. Let me give you an example just on cost per square foot. For Riverwood, which was 74,000 square feet, built in 2017, was $234 a square foot. This elementary, number 9, priced at what is currently going on in Oklahoma and Texas of actual elementary schools being built, is $450 a square foot. Inflation, cost of materials, everything has gone up. So we're seeing nearly 100% increase in costs, plus the financing. Every time the Fed increases the rates, that goes up for our borrowing costs. So we have to pull money from projects to account for the financing. So when we're looking at that kind of scenario, if you, like the high school was, if I'm going to go off memory on the slide, 750,000 square feet, including the big box areas. So let's just cut that in half and then multiply that by $450 per square foot, 500 to 550 when you include safe, hardened shelter areas for safe places, then you're easily in the $350 to $500 million. That alone, we don't even have that bonding capacity. And if we did, that would, remember my max out the credit card scenario? We would max out the credit card for 12 years and not able to address elementary, intermediate, or any of our program needs. So does that mean we will never do that? You never say never. I think there are times, there are right times to have conversations about direction. This just is the wrong time, in my opinion, financially, of building a second high school and strapping everybody and not able to accommodate growth at other levels. So this discussion, I'm all for discussion. I really want and value input. So how do we do that in a way that, because this question is not going to go away, because the growth at the high school will continue. So how do we do that constructively together as a community to find out how are we going to move forward with this? How are we going to address this 5-10 years from now? Is we're planning a continuous strategic improvement plan starting next year, and really grappling with where, as we're growing as a community every single year, where does the community see us going? How can the community have input on the direction? And so there's going to be a lot of surveys, a lot of meetings just like this in the next year or two to where we can have those conversations and there's more input from the community as well as long-range planning. So like I said, I don't think it's a question of we don't want to talk about it. It has its place, it has its role. Just at this point in time, it's financially not possible for us to do it even half the size of the current high school. So that doesn't mean we can't have the conversation and looking forward, and maybe you don't, you're not aware of what are the possibilities at the high school. You know, I've got all kinds of ideas of how we can grow, because the question is capacity. How do you grow capacity? And so we can do that. We have space here where we can actually add capacity to the high school and it not be this mega field. But I know you don't know, well, what are you talking about? Well, we have to go in phases. And there may be a better idea after we engage the community of how do we handle that. So I would say for where we are right now, we have no other choice but to expand the high school and meet these needs. And then let's continue the discussion of what does that look like moving forward. So I just don't want people to think, oh, we don't want to talk about it. We can talk about it, but there's a time that you can actually act on the information, and that's where we need to move towards.
I just want to add to that real quick. So we've got several questions on the two high school. One of the things I'll talk about just for a second is academics. So there's implications on, there's a lot of classes that we are currently able to offer because of the size of the high school. There's a lot of classes, AP classes, which is advanced placement classes, intended to get college credit where the kids take the test and they get college credit and walk out of high school with hours of credit towards college already. There's a lot of advanced placement classes we're able to offer, as well as a lot of other classes. If we split into two high schools, there are advanced placement classes we would have to cut out because we wouldn't have enough kids to have those classes meet. And so when we're talking about the class sizes that Caitlin's talking about, it would not be fair for her to be having those large class sizes, and we've got a teacher over here teaching an advanced placement class because we cut that class of 20 kids down to 10 kids. That class would potentially not make it, so we've been cutting out opportunities for kids because of that. And we've talked about, I've heard questions about, well, we can have the teacher drive from this school and they come over to this school. Yes, we could, but we'll lose some instructional time because of travel. We also have got, like that master schedule we talked about, it's so difficult to build that schedule that even though maybe that class is offered, well, that's also the only time that this class over here that I need. And so it may not work, so we really would be potentially cutting out opportunities, academic opportunities for kids if we went to that model. And I just want to piggyback real quick on what Joe was saying a minute ago. there's something about this community, Mustang Public Schools. Every single kid, and there's a lot of elementary principals out here, every one of our little kiddos are Broncos. And I'm just throwing that out there. There's something about this community that everybody's going to the same place. And I've worked in another district, great district, had 2 high schools, and that community had huge support, but it was very divided. And so you go to this business and it said, we support this school. You go to this one and that supports that school. And so it's just a different feel in the community. I brought my daughter over to this district just because I wanted to be a part of this district and this community. So there's something to be said for everybody's a Bronco in this district. So I'm just going to add that to them.
All right. We're going to move along and cover a couple of other themed areas, and if we have time, we'll come back to maybe some more specifics on that. What about the plan for upgrading the cameras on buses? Is that part of the safety and security for this bond?
Yes. Well, on that, yes. The quick answer, yes. Also to the process, cameras. When we ask for camera footage from a bus, somebody has to physically go into the bus, remove the card, take it into a computer, download it, and then process it, and then send us what it is. So what I said earlier, time is the most important thing. So that is one of the things we're going to try to address, is how do we shorten up that gap between the actual bus footage and us reviewing it to see what happened. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
Kurt, if I can expand on it a little bit, just real quick, we have buses that have been well maintained that are 2005 buses that are transporting kids, all the way up to 2021 buses. It's not that we can go out and replace every broken camera on every bus, but we certainly will prioritize needs based on ridership, length of routes, those kinds of things. But that is a safety and security issue that we're well aware of, that concerns us, that we need bond issues like this to help us address. So yes, big priority for me.
All right. What would the safe rooms look like in the new elementary school and or the high school expansion?
Well, one thing that I would like to do is what we did with Riverwood, and I believe Meadowbrook has it too, is that the safe rooms, we put them in the gyms. I won't do that again. Those become echo chambers in there. So what it would be is, what we're looking at is where you have different areas of the building would have safe areas, so that you don't have kids moving through the building and trying to get to one place. Yes, having the big box, it made more sense in a gym to be able to harden that, but that noise level just was too much. We had to put all kinds of sound clouds and diffusion for the noise. But the way we're looking at this one is to, like, for example, if you can picture Riverwood, there's several wings, is that can we harden areas within each wing so that the students don't have to travel that far, so they can be within the safe room just across the hall, a couple of rooms down, something like that.
So going back to school finance, is there money somewhere else to assist with turf projects rather than needing to bond for that?
I would love to take suggestions if somebody knows of a source for it. The answer to that is no. Like I said, general fund, illegal to build buildings, to even do a classroom expansion. The only exception, and what Mr. Lovelace was saying, is portables. Portables they suit a purpose in time, but they are not the forever solution. And that's what we want, are forever solutions. That's why we use the federal money to expand Riverwood, to purchase another building for growing programs. So there's a fourth. We could do Otis Spunkmeyer cookies, and I kid, but activity money. And that's meant for kids directly for that year. That's not meant to build buildings. So the only revenue stream to build buildings quicker than as we need them is bond funds.
What is the plan for the transparency for the money that would come from the bonds? How will the stakeholders know that we are doing the things that we've seen in these slides?
Me again? Everybody's looking at me. To answer that, it has to be transparent. For example, in the 2017 bond issue, by law, we have 3 years to complete those and expend that. So we have to have a really good plan, and plus, I'm bound, we are bound by law, notice I threw him into the equation too, bound by law to spend the money on exactly what we said it would go to. So I don't have the option of saying, I changed my mind, I don't want to do elementary number 9, I want to build this. The board has already approved it, the resolution has already gone to the election board. We are committed to, and bound by law, to build exactly what we've said. So moving forward, we give the board updates monthly as we're going through projects to where, this is the problem we ran into, or hey, we were able to, after bid day, we got a better deal, so we're able to do this. So the board, the elected officials, they're the ones that we show, hey, this is how we're spending the money. And if it's something we can put on the website as we go, we would welcome that. We want you to know that we're spending your money wisely and how it's being spent. But by law, I don't have any leeway. I have to do what we said and told the voters we would do.
All right, another question. I live in Yukon, and I'll also add Oklahoma City to that. Can I vote in this election?
Hello, it's me again. No. So, have you ever heard of Yucatan City? Yeah, Yukon, Oklahoma City, Mustang. If you live in the 72 square miles, and if a Mustang school bus goes by your neighborhood, you're eligible to vote. If you need more specifics than that, on our website is a map of the school district. And that is, whoever came put that question, that's an excellent question, because that always comes up. I live in Yukon city limits, can I vote? I live in Oklahoma city limits, can I vote? Where do your kids go to school? And if you remember that tax bill that I showed up there, if you, there or your Oklahoma voting portal, if you will go to your voting portal, enter your information, it tells you what school district you're eligible to vote in, and if it says Mustang, you're eligible to vote in this. So a quick, easy way you could tonight, go home, log into the Oklahoma voting portal, and pull up your information. It'll tell you exactly what school district you're eligible to vote in. But on our website, you can look up your address and see where you live, and if it's within those 72 square miles.
And sort of in that same vein, since we have Yukon and Oklahoma City in our school district boundary, could we not just give Yukon to Yukon and Oklahoma City to Oklahoma City? That would make our district smaller and address the growth.
Can't do that. School boundaries are already set. I don't even know the process that it would take to do that, but the school boundaries are set. Yukon is experiencing comparatively the same growth that we are, not total numbers, but percentage. Piedmont is experiencing growth as well. Deer Creek is. It's that western side of the metro. So deferring part of the school district to another community, you're just shuffling the burden is what you're doing with that. People, and I'm being a little prideful here, people choose to come to live in this community for two reasons: the schools and the community itself. And so adjusting things there, that's just impossible to do, of moving boundaries to do that. And so for me, we have a level of standard of relationship with the city, Mustang, that people see. They know that, hey, that's that hometown feel. It's been said many times, is that there's just a different feel in Mustang, even though we're one of the larger school districts. That to me is what gives that sense of community, the tie between the community and the schools. So is it possible? Probably there's some law that talks about it, that you have to get permission from everybody and go to a vote. I don't see Yukon wanting to take over part of this, depending on maybe where some of the athletes live, maybe, I don't know, but, or some of our fine arts kids, but no, it's just not a possibility.
I might piggyback on that. I might piggyback on that. You might just say, well, can't we just tell everyone we're full? When kids come from families moving into our district, we're obligated to provide an education for them. The commercial tax base provides dollars to do that, and the residential tax base provides dollars to do that. So it's not like we can just say, we can't take you, you have to go somewhere else. If you live within our school boundary, we're obligated and responsible to provide that education. So we try to take the resources we've been allocated and do the best job we can with that, but as everyone's seen, Again, we've spoken to this at length. Drive up and down Mustang Road, people come here for the school district and the community, so we can't just say we're full.
I'll also add that working at a school this large, it can be intimidating, but it makes me very proud that people want to be here. They want to go, their kids to go to school here. That is something we could be really proud of instead of wanting them maybe to be distributed somewhere else. Because we have a lot of really valuable things to offer them and to make them better. And like I said earlier, without all of this, some of those really valuable things would have to go away probably. Like we have enough kids right now at this point that if they wanted something, a class, all we would have to do as teachers is ask Dr. Knowles, and if we have the numbers and we have the curriculum, she's sold. Like anything that we can provide these kids, they're all about. As many kids as we have, no matter what. We don't get told no very often for the kids. But I'm really proud to work at a place this big, frankly, I am. It's cool that people want to be here. It doesn't happen everywhere.
And we've heard a lot of information tonight, so if you have come up with additional questions, if you've still got a note card, then raise that up and someone can bring that up. Also, if you need a note card, please let our folks know and they can get you a note card to write additional questions. So, one other question that we had come in is, one of the slides mentioned instructional materials. What sort of instructional materials would be included or purchased with these bond funds?
So, textbooks is the main thing. We do get an allocation from the state each year for textbooks, but it's a fraction of the cost of actual textbooks. This last year, for example, we adopted K through 4 K through 6 ELA textbooks, and this current year we're adopting 7th through 12th grade. Just for K through 4 ELA textbooks, it was $1.4 million. So the budget that we're given from the State Department does not cover all of that. So we always have to dip into these other funds to make sure that we have enough to provide just the textbooks that students need. But also all kinds of programs. We have online programs that we use for students that we use these funds for as well. Ryan, at the high school, I'm sure there's things.
So to add on what she's saying, for next year, this year, we're doing textbook adoption for secondary ELA for grades 7 through 12, and so that's going to be another big purchase that those funds will help cover. Also, because of our growth, we budget about $200,000 a year for textbooks just for growth for kids moving in. So we've got to order extra geometry books, we've got to order extra ELA 2 books, and all those kind of things that we have to take care of to meet those needs for growth, because we keep growing 500 or so kids a year.
And I'll add on to that, like I said, there are rules. Every pot of money that schools have access to have rules. With bond funds, we cannot expend on consumables, paper, pencils, things that are consumed quickly. It has to meet the threshold of 3 to 5 years minimum. That whatever you purchase, it has to have at least the minimum livelihood. So that's where we use like textbooks. It's a 6-year adoption, so it easily meets that threshold. The other thing is, it was mentioned earlier, our devotion, but it's really our dedication to STEM and robotics. Bond funds can be used to purchase those type of devices, those type of supplies, so that the growth of those programs is just unbelievable. That's a good thing. So using bond funds helps us to purchase those types of materials.
Okay, so going back to talk a little bit more about the high school, and you mentioned kind of a long-range plan for the high school. Knowing that things could absolutely change as needs change, can anyone talk more about the long-range plan for the existing high school campus and what that might look like in the years to come?
I'll go ahead and start there. So part of the conversation with the long-range planning committee is available land that we've got, that we own. How can we develop that and utilize it to meet not only existing current needs, but what are those needs going to be in the future? Will we need a career center or a counseling center? Do we want to expand on the wood shop and those kinds of industrial technology programs? electronics, and the esports and aviation, and do we want to look at the potential of specific academies or centers that cater to those kinds of secondary offerings? The sky's the limit with regard to those conversations. There are things that we also discuss, limitations. I mentioned land. You know, we would have to have land to build an academy on. We would have to have land to expand our industrial arts programs. We would have to have land to build a career and college center. The financial piece of that goes into that conversation as well. So when we have those conversations, we've talked about a host of things. I mean, we've shot for the moon and you know, talked about all kinds of things. The bottom line is, for this bond issue, we use data to drive decisions to meet immediate needs. The fact that we've got one scheduled for 23, one scheduled for 27, and one scheduled for 31 in a phased approach that allow us to pay off that debt sooner affords us an opportunity in 27 to have a bigger picture of things that are actually attainable. And then again, in 31, position ourselves again to maybe reach for the further star that's aware or higher moon. So, you know, changing needs. I don't know what kids will look like 8 years from now. I thought 8 years ago they wouldn't necessarily look like they look now. They come to school, and if they want to learn it, they learn it. They come to you and they already know it because they've been on YouTube for the last 40 hours, right? That blows me away. I'm over 50, so I'm just kind of like, okay. Good. So when you talk about needs, right? We've got to be very flexible. We've got to be dynamic in our approach to how we meet those student needs. And like Caitlin said earlier, Dr. Knowles, if kids come and say, hey, we want to do this, you've got to be in a position where you support learning, you support the enthusiasm and passion of kids, and you find ways to remove barriers to give them the things that they want to be competitive in a global society. So that's where we are.
All right. One last question, and that is, how will another elementary school help with class sizes? Would we redistrict, or what would that look like?
Yes, we would redistrict. So each year, this is coming up in about March or early April, what we do is we take all of our current numbers and we roll all of our grade levels up. Sue, I see Sue out there, she does that for us. So all of our second grade students, we roll up into third grade and see what that's going to look like with our third grade teams across the district. We roll third grade up into fourth grade. And we look at potential growth. We look back at kind of the growth percentages that we've had. And every single year we come to the table at the end of the school year and we say, we're going to need 3 teachers at Prairie View. We're going to need 5 teachers, it's always 5 teachers at Riverwood. We're going to need 2 more teachers at Valley. And right now, if I need 5 more teachers at Riverwood, we don't have anywhere to put them. So those students are literally going to be they're going to be absorbed into the other teachers' classrooms. This is the first time in my 10 years that we've hit that threshold to where we literally have no more rooms available in many of our schools. So what we would have to do is redistrict. Nobody likes that word, that's not a friendly term. But what has happened in previous years when we have had students that have had to go to new schools, we have parents come back to us and say, that's the best thing we've ever done. Opening a new school is so cool. It's so neat to see that community come together. So it's a scary thing for parents when we do have to redistrict, but it ends up being a really great experience for our students. So, anybody else have an answer to that?
All right, we would like to thank you one more time for coming out to our Momentum 23 Forum. If you want to find more information, go to the MPS or the mustangps.org website, click Momentum 23, and you can find all of the information from this evening, from previous presentations as well. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.